The word of the day is MILF, which stands for Man, I Love Fearless. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach. I am the Swiftologist. I make thoughtful weekly videos, and today I am continuing a series that I have been doing basically since the start of my channel, which is where I tier rank every single Taylor Swift song on any specific album, and then I offer you my take on a reshuffled track list, trying to kind of streamline Taylor Swift's thought process and create a cohesive narrative. One of my critiques about the way that Taylor releases her albums is really the track list. So often they seem kind of immaterial to whatever's going on. There's no story being told. And, that can be really difficult with an album like Red, where there are so many different things going on. But the whole goal of my project is just to kind of try and give you a new way into thinking about this album. Maybe you haven't listened to Fearless in a while and you want to listen to it from start to finish with a coherent story. Well, guess what? I have it for you. I will leave all of the other versions of this video that I've done for other albums in a playlist down below. And also I will link the Spotify playlist that I will create so that you can listen along to my rearranged, reimagined album shuffle, and you can find that on Spotify along with all the other playlists that I have done. And before we get any further into this video, I just want to take a moment and say thank you to the sponsor, who is Scentbird. Divas, you know that I believe a scent can completely transform your vibe. I've talked about this before on my channel and on Instagram, how I like to build scent memories with all of my fragrances. Every time I spray Tom Ford Santal Blush, for example, I immediately recall hugging Taylor Swift, because that's what she wore when I met her. Did you guys know that I went to the secret session? Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service where you can try premium perfumes without committing to full-size bottles. For just $8 in your first month, you'll get a 30-day supply of designer or niche fragrances delivered right to your door. Plus, with over 700 options, including brands like Prada and Versace, you'll never run out of choices. Thanks to Scentbird, finding your perfect scent to make memories with has never been easier. They've got 3 of my signature and favorite fragrances in their scent library right now. Juliet Has a Gun's Ode to Dullness, which I use as a base layer to intensify my other cozy scents. L'Eau d'Issei by Issei Miyake, which fills me with memories of my very stylish mom in the 90s. And Lucienne by Lise, which is a new discovery and a freshie favorite of mine. Are you ready to find your signature scent in 2025? Use my promo code SWIFTOLOGIST55 to get 55% off your first month. Yes, that's just $8 for your first month of Scentbird. So let me reiterate to you one more time. Scan my QR code on the screen or use the code SWIFTOLOGIST55 at checkout to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Thank you again so much to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. If you are a Taylor Swift fan and you listen to my podcast or you watch Swiftologist a lot, then you must already know that the Snares Tour, my podcast Evolution of a Snake going live on tour in 10 cities in the United States, is coming to a city near you next year. And we have low ticket warnings for DC, New York City, LA, and now kind of Boston too. So make sure that if you want to come see Evolution of a Snake live, you go and get your tickets. I will leave all the information about that in the description bar as well. Before we get all the way into it, I do have some news to share. If you follow my Instagram, you probably know this already, but my beloved dog Gertrude has passed away. And that has been an incredibly difficult thing for me to go through. And this week has been, frankly, very, very difficult. So if I'm a little low energy, if I'm a little off today, that's why. I was considering taking a week off, but I think that it's better for me to keep working. It distracts me and keeps me busy. So thank you all so much for your gorgeous words and condolences that you sent to me. It really means a lot to me. And I know that you guys know Gertrude. Someone in the comments described Gertrude as like a shadow producer of Swiftologist because she was always sleeping on my bed. And she's not going to be there anymore. So I just wanted to share that with you. And thank you so much for respecting that I may need to take some time to process that, to grieve, but it has been very difficult. However, I am inspired by the one and only Miss Taylor Swift, who once said, famously, I can do it with a broken heart. So that is what I'm going to be doing this week, just doing everything that I do normally, but instead with a broken heart. So that's what's going on. I live in Singapore, it's one of the hottest countries in the world, and the humidity is crazy. And I am training for a half marathon, which is to be run outside. So my hair was really holding me back from enjoying these already very punishing runs. So it had to go. But I am excited to have this new hair in the new year. And I am also moving. Yes, this set that you see behind you, set being my bedroom, will no longer exist. I will be moving into a completely different place. I'm going to be taking some of my furniture with me, but I also am going to be doing a little bit of a bedroom wall, gallery wall refresh. So if you're interested in content about that, I might talk about it on Instagram a little bit. So this may be one of the last videos that I film in this room, in this space, the space where Swiftologist was born and created. So the beginning of this year has been a lot of adjustment for me. And, it is a new year. There are new things. I'm doing okay, actually kind of bad. I'm on some new shit, but we're going to do it with a broken heart, as I said to you. So enjoy all the videos that you have left of me with this background. There will be a couple because, I pre-record. And actually revisiting Fearless this week has been a really joyful occasion for me, because I have to say I don't spin this album from front to back very often. I have lived with this album for 17 years. That number has just stopped me in my tracks and gagged me into oblivion. But that's the truth of the matter. This album has been in my life for 17 years. So you'll forgive me if sometimes I, give it a little miss. I have spun it to death. It has been one of the greatest albums, one of the most important albums to me in my life. But, the Taylor's version breathed a new life into it. And the Taylor's version project in general is interesting because you guys know that I don't view the Taylor's versions as a replacement for the stolen versions. Absolutely not. I have both. And that's why I enjoy the Taylor's version project more than anyone else, because I'm free of morality and attachments to it. I know that, if Taylor bungles a re-recording, more likely than you think, I will always have my treasured original version to return to. Now, I think that Fearless, upon reflection, and I have been saying this for a while, is the best executed re-recording of all the re-recordings thus far. I think this might be because she was able to devote a lot more time to the Fearless re-recording. It was done in the middle of, the pandemic, when she had just finished doing Folklore and Evermore. I think she was also experimenting and seeing what it was going to be like. This was the first Taylor's version project that launched the entire phenomenon that eventually became the Eras Tour. It's an extremely important event in her career that this happened. And it was one of those, I think, least celebrated ones because it was the first one. It was the trial, and it was during the pandemic. There weren't a lot of opportunities to promote it. And the vault tracks, let's be honest, the thing that lacks about Fearless Taylor's version is the vault tracks, because 90% of these vault tracks are songs that were abducted from the debut writing sessions. There is one true Fearless vault track on this record, and the rest of them are songs that I have already heard in some shape or form from my days collecting unreleased demos from 2004 onwards. And so because of that, I wasn't too excited to hear these re-recorded versions of songs that I had already known and thought were kind of whatever anyway to begin with. It definitely wasn't one of those vaults where there was a lot of surprising content, a lot of texture that added to my understanding of what Fearless was. I think at this point in her career, Taylor was really focused on creating something streamlined, and Fearless came together on a bit of a tight timeline, so tight that Forever and Always was squeezed onto it at the last minute famously. And I think that she really focused on quality over quantity, which is why this vault track is actually not really a Fearless vault track. It's a debut vault track. The debut vault track, don't worry, will still have a bunch of songs we've already heard before because there are so many. We're talking like hundreds of songs from that period that are ready to go. So I'm just going to warn you that I don't love the vault tracks on Fearless, but the re-recorded versions of these songs, some of them nearly surpass the original versions. And I think that we should just get into it and start talking about that. Let's go through the categories that I put together for today's ranking. Diva, diva, diva. Well, we all know what that means. It means that she is the moment. She is the legend. She is a song that is painted on the back of my eyelids, that whenever I hear it, I am immediately resurrected. Undiscovered Supermodel. This is a song that slays, is iconic. Maybe I've not returned to it as of late, or maybe it's underrated by the fandom. Then I have Well Yes. So this is a song that, just is a good song, not something that I am particularly feeling strong about either way. She Exists is like neutral, negative, and Delete It is, of course, a song that needs to be deleted. So that's not a good feeling, is it? When I tell you that the re-recorded version of Fearless is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me, I'm not being hyperbolic. It is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. If you go all the way back and watch my reaction to Fearless Taylor's version, this was the first re-recorded song other than Love Story that I heard in full, and it gagged me into the next century. There is something so crisp and beautiful about this reproduction of Fearless, and I think it's one of the best examples of how the re-recorded version of an original song can add value to the original, because I feel like the original mix of Fearless, there is like a certain fuzziness to the drums and to the arrangements that you hear that is not present in the 2021 version of this song. Obviously, technology has advanced massively since Taylor originally recorded these records, and she has access to way more resources to make them perfect and polished than she did before, which is why when she bungles them, it makes absolutely no sense. But the Fearless re-recorded version benefits so greatly from just having like a clarity on the instrumentation that is just not there in the original version. Also, I think that this is one of her most faithful vocal reproductions. Sometimes I can tell that she's phoning it in, or I can hear like a comped vocal take. It doesn't sound like it was sung all the way through. Usually it isn't anyway, but there's an art to making it sound like it is. And the Fearless vocal is really amazing. If anything, I think this version of Fearless surpasses the original, because when I listen to it, I can hear more of it. I can hear the textures of the songs. I am immersed in the layers of it, and I just can't say enough good things about Fearless. What a way to start off the re-recording. The re-recorded version also definitely made me estimate this song more than I had before. I've always loved Fearless, but this has really elevated it into my upper echelon of Taylor Swift songs that are just indelible. You would have to pry them from my cold dead hands. This is one of the ones that I would take to a desert island. I feel like I should give you my opinion on the original version and the re-recorded version when we're doing this, because that is always an interesting thing to discuss, and I get that question question a lot. Which re-recorded versions surpass the originals? In terms of surpassing, there's a very few number of songs that actually do it, and they are pretty much all on Fearless. So that's an exciting thing for today. We're gonna have a lot of positivity about that. Up next is 15. I mean, this song, Undiscovered Supermodel, well, yes, I'm going to put it in Undiscovered Supermodel because I don't hear the stannies, the new girlies, really returning to 15 a lot. And to that I say, why? Because 15, to me, was the hug from an older sister, was the wise words of someone who had been through that awful process of growing up before. When I was 10, 11, 12 years old and I had 15, I felt like I had the map to the future. I felt like I had a path through all of the nonsense and the pain of adolescence. So it really is one of those songs that is very special to you if you had a connection to it at a very specific moment in time. I think otherwise, it's hard for me to imagine, but I think otherwise you might think that it is a little trite or boring perhaps, but this is also deeply entwined with Taylor. I mean, we have Abigail, queen of having her trauma exploited by Taylor Swift on numerous occasions, Taylor Swift's multiple bridesmaid attendee for Abigail's many weddings. This is a moment in the TSCU that I think is very important to everybody if you were there from the beginning. So I am perplexed that the little teenage girlies and gays are not resonating with this song as much. I don't see people having mental breakdowns to this song. I see them having mental breakdowns to songs like Is It Over Now? And that makes me pause. I see them having breakdowns about Guilty as Sin, and that makes me pause because I think that fundamentally the fan relationship to Taylor Swift has really evolved. This newer generation of fans, something that I have observed and I think to be true about them is that they are more invested in Taylor as a character, and they're really invested in like her story and her experiences and following her feelings, and they get very worked up about imagining themselves in her life or in her shoes or feeling like they know her. Whereas I think for, the old heads, the original Swifties, a lot of our foundational relationship to Taylor Swift before there was this huge like trend of lore and of mining things for clues and Easter eggs was first and foremost about seeing yourself in Taylor Swift songs. It was seeing something about yourself that you found hard to look at, or having an experience that you felt was hard to articulate, or having her reassure you about something that was going on in your life. That was a very key feature, I think, of the early works, and that's why 15 is so special to me, and why I think it probably isn't as special to a lot of the younger fans, which is a shame, but whatever. Love Story, the re-recorded version is okay. I wouldn't say that it surpasses. There are a couple of songs from the early days specifically that are just always going to be impossible to recapture a youthful magic, and there are a couple of them on Fearless. Love Story, diva, diva, diva. I mean, where else are you going to put Love Story? Come on. This might be the Taylor Swift song. You know how you have the picture of yourself that you love? This is the Taylor Swift song. I think that Love Story really is emblematic of everything that Taylor Swift is very good at, which is narrative storytelling. First of all, there's a country tradition in Love Story in that she is telling a story we already know, but twisting it and changing its fate at the end. That is a very interesting oral tradition-y thing to do. And I also think that it is delusional. It is a delusional song. It is ridiculous. The concept of let me, teenage girl from Nashville, rewrite Shakespeare's ending because I can do it better and I believe in love, despite all evidence to the contrary and what I will learn in the future. There is something very sweet and precocious about this song. And the re-recorded version of it, I think it's not like Fearless in the sense that it's like a one-to-one replica, but it's like an homage that I really love. I feel that way about Enchanted, Taylor's version too. I love Enchanted, the re-recorded version. I would probably listen to it over the original version more often than not now, but that's because I get a nostalgic kick out of hearing older Taylor sing younger Taylor. Whereas Fearless, I don't notice a difference really between young and old Taylor when I listen to that. So with Love Story, I think it's more of an homage. It's a tribute. It's very faithfully done. I think the drums are gorgeous in this. The execution of the instrumental is amazing. There are some slight vocal changes that she's done in her delivery, and I notice all the vocal changes, okay? I have been listening to these songs for so damn long that one O that's out of place, one phrase that's clipped or a little bit too short, I am hearing it, okay? So in Love Story, there are a few moments where I'm like, oh, you're singing the live version of Love Story, like what you've come to perform rather than what you once recorded, and I'm okay with it. And this was the first re-recorded song we ever heard, so I think it was good that it was a little bit different because it pointed out that, yes, there are going to be differences. Hey, Steven, diva, 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 hello. Hey Steven was a song that I loved when I was like 11 and then completely forgot about until the re-recordings. I think Hey Steven is one of those ones that just kind of got lost to the sands of time. And, you know, back in the day, there were always clear standouts or deep cuts from the records. You don't have that so much anymore because there are just so many people and everybody has a shooter song. So when I think about what the Fearless songs were that weren't singles that people really loved from back in the day, it was Forever and Always, Tell Me Why, and The Way I Loved You. Those were the songs that people remembered and loved as their deep cut from Fearless. Hey Steven did kind of get pushed to the wayside a little bit, and I think that it got written off by critics for sure at first as being just like a silly like little girls song, but there is something so clever and funny and wry about Hey Steven, about how, you know, Taylor is feeling like she's this underdog, this uncool girl. I mean, obviously there was an element of fiction to this, but she felt as though she wasn't a hot popular girl. Okay, that was a core feeling that Taylor Swift had that permeated a lot of her early music. And in Hey Steven, she's saying, well, you know what, I can't be that popular girl that I secretly want to be, but you know what I can do? I can write a song about you. And the chuckle in the re-recorded version is everything to me, quite frankly. And the humor and the joy that I can hear in her voice in the re-recorded version of this song really elevates the original. So you see, the power of a good re-recording can really just like take a song that was kind of not even maybe whatever, but just okay to begin with, and elevate it to the level of complete and total diva, diva, diva. Up next is White Horse. White Horse is one of those ones that has not aged with me very well. It was one of those songs that when it first came out, I mean, it was a track 5. It was probably the first time we noticed a track 5 coincidence because we had Cold As You and now White Horse. Keep in mind, nothing else had happened yet. Taylor herself had not clocked on to the track 5 thing. And White Horse is a weepy, sad song. It's kind of a foil to Love Story in a way. Love Story is about believing in love and believing in fairy tales. And White Horse is about acknowledging and accepting, you know, that the man with the white horse, he's not going to come around. He's not going to arrive. You are dealing with the Jonas Brother, okay? He's going to call you on the phone and break up with you on a 27-second phone call. He will not be mounting his steed and riding into your Nashville village and picking you up and running off into the sunset. So she learned that lesson. We learned it too. And I have not ruminated on the lesson since. The re-recorded version is just okay. You Belong With Me. Okay, diva, diva, diva. Where else am I going to put You Belong With Me? Again, when we're talking about the Taylor Swift song, to me, Love Story and You Belong With Me are like the two competitors for number one. And then I let in some of the other eras. Then I think about, you know, maybe a Shake It Off here, maybe a We Are Never There, maybe even a Karma here. Who knows? I'm going to do a video on that soon. But You Belong With Me was the blueprint for a Taylor Swift pop song. And what was really extraordinary about Fearless as a record was that it was a crossover moment. And crossover in a way that I think had not been done before. I think a lot of her blueprints for crossover artists like Shania Twain maybe had like one or two kind of big mainstream hits that were country pop, and then that was it. And that really was like the carrier of their legacy. The thing that Taylor did with Fearless was very clearly announced to the world, whether she even knew it at the time or not, that she was a pop star and that she was making pop music. And this is a tension that emerged within country music. Country was always saying she's too pop, she's not a real country writer. But, you know, all the songs that I just described to you before You Belong With Me have very clear country influences and traditions within them. You Belong With Me, I would say, is the poppiest moment on this record for sure. If you take away that like steel guitar or the banjo or whatever it is, it doesn't really sound like a country song anymore. And her twang on all the songs on this record is notably lightest on You Belong With Me, I think. This was a great vocal delivery for her at the time. It was difficult for her to sing live. She didn't frequently accomplish that task, but you know what? We had an opportunity to make the re-recorded version amazing, and you know what happened? For some reason, it just sounds like it was put through a wormhole. It's the guitar. From the second I heard it, you can see in my reaction, from the second I heard the re-recorded version of You Belong With Me, I was like, this is wrong. It's off, and nothing can save it from its fate because the instrumental is broken. And I feel that same way about Holy Ground. It's like, I can't even really pay attention to the evolution of the vocals here because the instrumental is so like distractingly and jarringly off. And I have a producer friend who I spoke to a little bit about like the challenge of re-recording these songs. And something he said was a lot of the technology is updated, but some of the stuff that we liked about the earlier versions of her songs are things that are due to having lower quality studio instruments. A lot of the problems I think with the Taylor's version is that we can just hear way more of it than we could originally. The layering is a lot more intricate. Our sound quality is a lot better. We're listening on better headphones. There is that element of surprise. but I think there's something about You Belong With Me that is particularly unfaithful, and it feels a little sloppy. Like, it doesn't feel as though her heart is really fully in it, which is crazy to me because You Belong With Me is the song. It's one of the songs. Breathe featuring Colby Calais. Now, I don't want to talk too much about this song today, but Undiscovered Supermodel, Breathe is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs. This song got me through so many bad nights in middle school, okay? There are so many times when I had fights with my friends and I felt like I had no more friends anymore, and I would just sit on my bed and I would play Breathe over and over, and I would go on Tumblr and I would just like reblog sad pictures and make this my autoplay song on my blog. This was the song, and this also started the trend of featuring someone that you can't hear, featuring someone that is barely even present on the vocal. Colby Calais was the first victim of this fate. I'm so sorry, Colby. But you know what? I'm happy about it. I don't really care about her or to hear her voice. She supplies some pretty backup vocals, notably a ooh in one of the moments on Taylor's version. It seemed like Taylor was trying to give her a little bit more space by making her backing vocals more pronounced, which is definitely what happened. This is a faithful re-recording, but it doesn't replace the original for me. And, you know, that really is my high bar that needs to be cleared. And speaking of people who cleared that high bar for me, I'm sick and tired of your attitude. Tell me why. Diva, diva, diva. This song has always been one of my favorites from Fearless. I got this as a surprise song in Singapore with Foolish One, and I am still thinking about that to this day. That is like my number 2 favorite surprise song mashup that I got. Tell Me Why has the most rageful Taylor Swift vocal that she had delivered at that time. I'm going to go a step further and say that it's even more rageful than Forever and Always, because I think that the way that this song is written, you can tell, because she used to write on her guitar, right? She's a melodic songwriter. She doesn't write to track at this point in her career. You can tell that the guitar, the way that she was playing the guitar when she wrote this song, emphasized the enunciation, like the things that she's saying, the way that she's phrasing her statements is very punchy. It sounds like someone that is having an argument, and that is the whole point. She's angry at someone, she's unleashing on them, she's venting. And the re-recorded version of Tell Me Why is incredible. It's impeccable. And I think part of the reason why it's so good is because it was a really challenging vocal for her, and her vocal skills in Fearless were really not great. And you can actually hear that a little bit throughout the original record. To me, it's endearing, and I never noticed it at the time because everything was amazing and great. But when I look back now, you can really hear how her technique and her breath support, the resonance of her voice has changed so much. So that makes a song like Tell Me Why, which has that punch in the face impactfulness, it elevates it to another degree. So Tell Me Why, Taylor's version, to me, surpasses the original. You're Not Sorry. She exists, okay? I don't know what it is, but I've slowly started to develop, not a beef, but a slight disliking towards You're Not Sorry. It was the emotional power piano ballad that she performed at the Fearless tour while banging her head around like a banshee. And this song was everything to me. I have to stress also, all of these songs were always everything to me at every point, okay, in my life. This isn't one of those albums where I have a song that I really, really hate, so you won't really be catching me saying that. But You're Not Sorry to me is one that just didn't age well, either with me or with Taylor. When I compare it to the depth of writing on a song that is like similarly emotionally charged, like Tell Me Why or Forever and Always, You're Not Sorry has a really boring melody. The verses are very, very boring. My preferred way of consuming You're Not Sorry is in the 2 lines that it gets in the Back to December, Speak Now, Apologize, You're Not Sorry mashup. And that's the way that it should be, okay? And nobody talks enough about how that was the origination of the Taylor Swift universe mashups, but it was. And thank you, You're Not Sorry, for that. But the re-recorded version was not good enough to make me think more fondly of this song, so I don't. Up next is The Way I Loved You. Okay, my temptation is to put it into Undiscovered Supermodel just because I feel like the diva category is stacking up, but why should I punish a pretty girl? Pretty girl, let's hate on her. No way. Let's put The Way I Loved You in Diva, Diva, Diva. Now, she might have to come down to Undiscovered Supermodel later if I'm being really strict with myself, but The Way I Loved You is a really underrated song. It is a slow build. I think it's still even a little bit underrated. People were really campaigning for it to be played on the Eras tour, but this song is like a movie. I've always thought of this song and If This Was a Movie as kind of sister songs in a way, because there is that screaming and fighting and kissing in the rain, that bridge of If This Was a Movie. Like, these things are linked thematically and visually. And I think that the chorus of The Way I Loved You is so good and the bridge is incredible. We have some incredible bridge writing on Fearless. The Taylor Swift bridge trope definitely, started on Debut, but was continued with strong, full force on Fearless. And The Way I Loved You re-recorded version is really, really good. Do I think it's to the level of Tell Me Why or Fearless? No, but I would probably put it somewhere around Love Story. Yeah, that's probably where I would put it. Forever and Always, Diva, Diva, Diva. This was my favorite, number one favorite Taylor Swift song until I was about 17. Until 1989 came out, I was writing and dying for Forever and Always. I think Holy Ground may have surpassed it when Red came out, but that was kind of a later jump up. I had to grow into Holy Ground. Forever and Always hit me in the face. As soon as I heard it, every enemy I had ever had between the ages of 11 and 16 years old was getting the Forever and Always treatment. I was forever and alwaysing them. I think at the time when Fearless came out, Taylor was definitely known for, I mean, it's interesting because she definitely had songs like Picture to Burn. There was that Should Have Said No vindictiveness present on that first album. But what really was marketed to people, especially by Big Machine and by her management team at the time, who was her parents, but also I think she did have another management team at the beginning. There was a publicist involved, Paula. The thing that they were really trying to portray was America's sweetheart. And that's a tension that Taylor has slowly had to dismantle over the years. We hear her talking about that on Miss Americana. We've talked about it on Evolution of a Snake many times. And it's interesting because Taylor's a woman of contradictions. She is America's sweetheart, but there has always been a very feminist rage within her. And I think that that is so clear on a song like Forever and Always. This is like the original All Too Well in a way. It's saying, you are not going to gaslight me. You are not going to tell me that this was nothing, because I was there when you said Forever and Always and you didn't mean it. And you know what? Every performance that she did of this was more sicko mode and crazier than the last. Famously has never done a good live performance of this during the Fearless era, apart from on the tour where she slayed the house down boots. And, you know, that extended outro, Back Up, Baby, Back Up, where she would grab a fan's hand in the crowd. Oh, girls, there's lore attached to this one. And this song made me feel closer to her. And it gave me that first feeling of like madness on behalf of her towards someone else. I was like, Joe Jonas, you are over forever. Interesting how we died down on that and then we circle back around. It is one of those songs I think that is very key to the Fearless experience. And the unfortunately re-recorded version to me is not very good. And I think you can see from my first reaction, again, I was not pleased with the Forever and Always re-recording. I can hear the vocal takes being comped together. There's a little glitch in her voice at one point. You can hear the tuning kick in. And Forever and Always is one of those songs that was, I like to think of it as she grabbed her guitar and a pen and a microphone and her album was about to be submitted, like to go to the press to get printed. And she said to Scott Borchetta, I need to get this song on the record. I have to get this out. This needs to exist in the world. And I feel like you can hear that impulse. You can hear that drive towards confession within the lyrics and the way that it's delivered. It feels like a secret that swells up into like just a tsunami that overtakes the city. It's really crazy, this song. And the re-recorded version doesn't capture the urgency of the original. I think that Taylor was going through the motions on that. That's what I remember hearing and being like, did you just phone this one in? And it's always perplexing to me which ones she chooses to phone it in on, because certain songs you expect, like, okay, Girl at Home got Girl at Home. That made sense. Forever and Always getting Girl at Home don't make no sense. Style getting Girl at Home, that don't make no sense. So it's a give and take with Taylor Swift. You never know what you're going to get. The Best Day is up next, and The Best Day is a very special song because it is about Andrea Swift and her relationship with her mom. I too was bullied in school. I too stayed home from school, and I too am very close to my mother. She helped me through so many of my horrible times as an adolescent. The nights when I was sobbing to breathe on my bed, my mother was there. She was present. She was accounted for, and this song means a lot to us. Like, my mom loves this song too, and I would love to hear it live with her one day. I don't listen to it all the time, so would I put it into Diva, Diva, Diva? No, but when I think of songs that I relate to from Taylor, this is up there in the top 5 because, you know, as I've grown to become a critic of Taylor, not just a fan as I've gotten older and a commentator, I don't think that my main impulse and connection to her all the time anymore is how do I see myself in her music? But that was a really big driving impulse for me for a really long time. And The Best Day is a good example of a relationship and a connection I had to the songs that carried me through and made me want to be a stan. Change. She Exists. Am I going to do She Exists or Well, Yes? I'm going to put her in Well, Yes. I'm going to put her in Well, Yes. Change is, again, of course, I had my moment with this song. I thought that the 13-note hold of that big high note at the end, Hallelujah, was the greatest thing ever created. I thought that was Mariah, Celine, Aretha Swift. She really was out there singing her heart out with this one. It actually was the first song we heard from Fearless, which is crazy. This was attached to the Olympics. It has a weird music video. There is something a little kind of like false start about Change, and it's also about Big Machine, which taints it for me in hindsight. That really does. And, you know, good songs don't get tainted by current events, but songs that are just kind of okay, those ones maybe get the chop a little bit from here and there. So Change to me, also it's very generic lyric writing. It's kind of chat GPT Taylor, whereas if you look at all the other songs that are in the diva and the undiscovered supermodel category, those are specifics. There are like specific images rendered here. Change is like written kind of in second person as well. So it's not, there's like a second person address in Change. It's not as direct and confessional as the rest of the record is. And it doesn't give fearless. It's not giving fearless. It's giving, just regular bravery, not a fearless moment. Jump Then Fall, She Exists. This is one song I have never stand, okay? This song has always just been there. It's okay. I think that The Other Side of the Door and Jump Then Fall were written in the same writing session. That's kind of my theory, or they were written in close succession. Jump Then Fall is okay, but The Other Side of the Door is a far superior song, and there's nothing extra special about it, and I can't even recall any differences in the re-recording because I haven't listened to it that much because I don't really care. Untouchable, Diva, Diva, Diva. Untouchable is a song that Taylor reinvented so specifically. A lot of people forget that she didn't write this song. If you listen to the original version of the song, you will hear it and be like, how the hell did Taylor extrapolate what she did from that? It was so transformative that I believe the original writers of the song gave her a writing credit. And this song weirdly was kind of like shoved out in front when the platinum edition of Fearless came out, and it was performed on Saturday Night Live. It is a gorgeous song, and it sounds like a Taylor Swift song. It kind of reminds me of Superstar in terms of it has that slightly creepy, wistful, longing, secret romance vibe to it. But I think there's something very sweet and very precious in the way that she delivers it. Very much that America's Sweetheart thing. She performed it in a big poofy dress. It's a moment, and I love that about it. I also think the re-recording is really good. That's one, when I was re-listening to the record, I was like, okay, now we're in different areas. Forever and Always, Piano. I'm going to put her in Well Yes, because, after I was playing Breathe and having a mental breakdown, queued up straight next, my dear, was Forever and Always, Piano. And that was the great thing about Forever and Always. You could have your rageful screaming moment, and you could also have your sobbing crying on the floor moment with it. So it was a multi-purpose cathartic song. I definitely used all of these versions of these songs for my catharsis. So Forever and Always, Piano, We Love You. I thought that the reproduction of it was pretty faithful. Come In With the Rain. I'm going to put this in Undiscovered Supermodel, another song that I don't hear getting a lot of attention. One of the more traditionally country teen pop songs on this record. I think that there is something very pretty about this, and I think this could have been the lead song from Fearless Platinum as well. I think this could have been the one that they were shoving out and pushing in front because it's written by her. Let's start there. And I also think that it kind of links back to Teardrops on My Guitar a little bit. I really see this song taking place in the room where the music video for Teardrops on My Guitar is, where that, there is that open window and the curtains billowing. I'm getting that from Come In With the Rain. There's something very like traditionally feminine in the way where she's like, I'm just going to lay back and let you come to me because I'm not, one of those demanding girls. I'm one of those girls that, will pine for you in secret, but I won't inconvenience you. And it's interesting that Taylor loved to play that role, but she also loved to play the, I was there when you said Forever and Always. Do you see the dichotomies that exist even on this very early Taylor Swift record? She is my favorite unreliable narrator. Superstar. Nobody loves Superstar the way I love Superstar. I think this is one of her least streamed songs of all time, and that's a damn shame. That is a damn shame. This is a creepy song. If the Harrys from 2012 were able to write a song, this is the song that they would write. It's basically about being in love with someone who doesn't know you exist, and most specifically, a famous person, a singer who doesn't know that you exist. A lot of speculation this is about Joe Jonas. Very well could be. I just love that there's like a sultriness and a sexiness to the song. There isn't a lot of sex on Fearless. Obviously, it's not a really charged or sensual album, but there is something very sensual about Superstar. You imagine it being played in like a bar with low lighting, dim that spotlight, tell me things like, I can't take my eyes off of you. Hello, slinky sexy girl. I thought it was, you can see that this is something different. It's more adult. It's one of those great kind of secret additions that she shoves onto the end to round out the emotional picture and health of the record. Reminds me, now they're not the same, but reminds me of Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus. It gives an element, a layer of emotion or experience to the record that doesn't exist on the standard edition, and you kind of have to go looking for it and really listen and tune in and feel the vibrations to understand what it's bringing to you. The Other Side of the Door. Now, my instinct, of course, is to put it in Diva, Diva, Diva. But the great thing about The Other Side of the Door is that it is a completely bog standard, ordinary Taylor Swift song, akin to Jump Then Fall, really, until it gets to that outro. The bridge is incredible, and then that outro with your face come on, girls. That was Nicki Minaj. That was Roman's Revenge. That was really a rapper, a prodigal rapper of a generation coming out and spitting on the mic. This was an MC that many are scared to know and have not known since. I think this would be so fun to hear live. And I think that the re-recorded version almost gets it right, but there is a glitch in that outro where you can hear that it's takes comp together. And to a certain extent, you know what? I'm like, girl, I'm gonna let you have that one because this is difficult. This one would require a big, big, big breath. And I think she is capable of it, but she wasn't in the recording session for Taylor's version, unfortunately for us. So up next, we have the vault tracks, I guess. Oh no, we have Today Was a Fairy Tale. Girls, this is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs of all time, and I don't care what anyone has to say about it. It has the gorgeous whimsy of Fearless with the fairy tale, ridiculous, overblown precociousness of Love Story, and it has an infectious chorus. I've said it once and I'll say it again. If you have never felt this magic in the air, then that's your problem and not mine, and stop inflicting it upon me by saying that you don't care about Today Was a Fairy Tale. If you don't care about Today Was a Fairy Tale, your mom's a hoe, period. So that is one of the greatest songs ever created, not just in Taylor Swift's catalog, but in every catalog in the history of all time. That one is going into the time capsule for the aliens to discover when the earth is no longer here and they need to hear about what we were praying and chanting to, which was Today Was a Fairy Tale. The re-recorded version, this goes into the category of an enchanted re-record to me, where it's faithful reproduction, but it doesn't replace or surpass the original. It's just a nice addendum to have. I do listen to the Taylor's version more often than not, so that's a win. Now we're getting into the vault tracks. You all over me, She Exists. I mean, when this came out as the first vault track leading the charge, the very first one we were going to hear, first of all, the single cover was an iPhone picture of Taylor in a bar that I didn't care for. So why are we not going into the archives and pulling something out? I know that we're limited in terms of what we actually have access to, given that Big Machine owns a large chunk of things, but I'm saying let's hit up the independent photographers that were shooting you for reviews and magazines. Let's license those pictures. Let's come up with something else that's not an iPhone picture, okay? And having Maren Morris on it, irrelevant, who cares, didn't make a difference. This song, of all the songs even to pull from her debut vault, because I know all of those songs, this isn't even the Supermodel, the Diva, or the Undiscovered Greatness. There are even better ones included here that were not the single or the lead vault track. So that just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever that this was the first one. It's sleepy, it's boring, the lyric writing isn't that good, like $1 in your pocket. I don't want that. I really don't want that. It doesn't even surpass songs on debut. It's also a very jarring confession that this is not, in fact, a Fearless song. Now, up next, Mr. Perfectly Fine, Diva, Diva, Diva. Why this song was left off of Fearless, I have no idea. I feel like this must have been created in tandem with Forever and Always. This is why we need a documentary about the re-recordings. I need answers. I think it must have been created alongside Forever and Always, and maybe it wasn't done in time the way that Forever and Always was, or maybe they were, making calculations about what kind of Taylor Swift they wanted to project to the world. And when you look at the split of like wide-eyed swooning and pining versus like scheming, plotting, enacting revenge, it's a pretty even split with a more heavy focus on the whimsy. I think if you'd had Mr. Perfectly Fine on this, it might have accidentally tipped it into a little bit too much vengeance for what they were trying to portray about Taylor at the time. But Mr. Perfectly Fine, to me, as soon as I heard it, I was like, this was written for Fearless. I have no doubt about that. I am very confident that it was. This was the first song I heard where I got that feeling that the Taylor's Version project has given me that is so special that I chase, which is I'm hearing a voice from the grave. It's not someone who's dead, but it's someone that I haven't heard from in a really long time. And I thought I was never going to hear from them again. So getting to have that experience with Mr. Perfectly Fine is the entire point of this re-recordings process to me. So my philosophy since going on from this has been, if I get one of those songs per re-recording, I'm good. I'm good. And you know what? I have that for all of the re-recordings. What do I have on Speak Now? Speak Now, I have Foolish One. Oh my God. That is the Mr. Perfectly Fine of Speak Now. From Red, I have, you pick and choose. We have Better Man. We have Nothing New. All Too Well 10, but we already had that. 1989, Is It Over Now, to me is one of the diva supermodels of the entire 1989 era. I think that we are doing pretty good so far. So Reputation is the one I'm most worried about, I have to say. That's the one where I'm like, now, hold on a second. We Were Happy. She Exists. I didn't like the song when it was a demo, and you should really hear the demo, because if you want to hear Taylor Swift choking through a song, struggling to sing, then you need to be hearing that. That's When. I'm going to put That's When into Well Yes, Keith Urban being on it. I don't like when we give men verses on Fearless, okay? We are not letting Maren Morris sing properly, but we're letting Keith Urban warble on Fearless. I don't think that's right. And That's When is one of the songs that I actually really liked from the debut unreleased songs. So upset about the way it was treated and presented. Don't you? I'm saying delete it, not because the song is bad, but because the production of it is so antithetical to Fearless and what it is. It's just a random synthy Jack Antonoff song tacked onto the end of Fearless. I don't understand. I am similarly perplexed with the Elvira Girl at Home EDM remix. It has no relationship to the original record, and I don't care about it. Bye Bye Baby had a different name when it first came out, and you know what? I'm deleting it too. I don't care about that. I really don't care about that. And if this was a movie, I'm not a person who subscribes to ICJ violations, human rights offenses. If this was a movie, is a citizen of Speak Now Landia, and she was kidnapped by a brutal, horrible dictator called Taylor Swift and forcibly repatriated to Fearless Landia. And I don't recognize if this was a movie as part of Fearless. Therefore, it cannot be ranked here, but I do think it's important to note that it's the best song ever made. And also, if you don't like that, your mom's at home. So, all right, so let's visit my Diva category. I mean, it's long. It's very long. We have Fearless, Love Story, Hey Steven, You Belong With Me, Tell Me Why, The Way I Loved You, Forever and Always, Untouchable, Superstar, Today Was a Fairy Tale, and Mr. Perfectly Fine. Why don't I re-rank these in terms of their re-recording potential? Okay, so I quickly redid these categories to accommodate how I feel about the re-recordings. I'll walk you through it very quickly. Fearless, that is the gold standard, okay? That is something that surpasses the original. Rare, hard to find, not everybody has that. Enchanted, this is something that makes me super nostalgic and is good enough that I can listen to it in place of the Taylor's version and gives me a feeling that the original one couldn't give me. So I like it, but it's not a replacement. 15, something that just kind of hits the mark. It's not noticeably different, but it doesn't replace the original. Forever and Always is something that's kind of different, but not terrible. And Style, RIP, is, a botched moment, a moment of true travesty. So Fearless, that goes into the Fearless category. Where else is it going to go? 15 goes into the 15 category. And you know what? While we're here, Forever and Always goes into the Forever and Always category. Love Story is a Fearless moment. No, actually it's not. I've talked about this. I just said this. It's an enchanted moment. Hey Steven, Fearless. White Horse, 15, You Belong With Me, Style, sorry girl. Breathe, I'm going to put that in 15. Tell Me Why, Fearless, You're Not Sorry, 15, I don't really care about that. 15 is the ones that really didn't move me either way. The Way I Loved You, I'm going to put it in Enchanted, but it is bordering on 15 because it's not noticeably different. There isn't something so amazing about the new version. The Best Day, 15. Change, I'm actually going to take White Horse and put that into Forever and Always because there are differences in that take me out of it when I listen to it. Jump Then Fall, 15, who cares? Untouchable, 15. Forever and Always Piano, 15. Sure, why not? Come In With the Rain. I'm going to put that in Enchanted because I love hearing the stronger voice singing it. I'm also putting Superstar there for that reason. The Other Side of the Door, that's hard. I do get a nostalgic feeling, but there is a glitch in it, so it has to go in Forever and Always. I'm sorry, girls. Now, the vault tracks, a lot of them weren't originally recorded anyway, so we can't put them anywhere. Today Was a Fairy Tale into Enchanted. So this is an overview of how I feel about the re-recordings from top to bottom, right? Okay, the top is the ones that are really great, and the bottom is You Belong With Me. It's sad that a pretty girl like that met the fate that she did. Now it's time for me to walk you through my rearranged, reshuffled, Fearless track list. The thesis of this project for me is really to try and create a narrative that makes sense or is cohesive. I actually think the original Fearless track listing is pretty good and makes sense, so this was a harder one for me to do. It was more about trimming the fat, I think, and making sure that there was a very clear point of view and perspective all the way through. Fearless is about your first love. It is about your first love. It's about your first heartbreak. It's about growing up. It's about realizing that getting hurt is part of falling in love, and you don't know that until you experience it for the first time, and it feels like you're literally going to be murdered. You feel like you're being murdered actually by someone else, and that is the range of emotions that we're covering on Fearless. So I've whittled this down from over 20 tracks to 14 tracks, and I have almost all Taylor's versions on this playlist except for 2 songs which were botched, so they cannot be Taylor's version, but we're just going to have to get into it so I can explain to you my vision. So my first track is, but of course, the one and only opening track. Don't fix it if it's not broken. Fearless, okay? Because Fearless is the mission statement. Fearless is about being delusional. Fearless is about reading into things a little bit too much in a way that helps you escape into the fantasy of your own brain. And that is what's happening on Fearless. And speaking of being delusional and being deranged, track 2 after Fearless is Today Was a Fairy Tale. If you are having a moment, a low moment in your life, listen to these 2 songs back to back and you will be picked up. You will be revived. You will feel elevated. Today Was a Fairy Tale just instantly puts a smile on my face whenever I hear it. And I think that Fearless is about that amazing first date. And Today Was a Fairy Tale is about that amazing second date. You already know you like this person, but he's picking you up for a second date and danced in a storm in your best dress, Fearless, but time is starting to slow down and you're thinking, wow, this is really happening for me. That's an Easter egg if you're familiar with your Taylor lore. After Today Was a Fairy Tale, I think that we need to keep this kind of cutesy derangement going because we're going into Hey Steven. That is track 3. Because I think with Fearless and Today Was a Fairy Tale, if you really listen to those songs, she's not necessarily communicating this massive swell of romantic emotion that she's having to the person that she's with. Something that was an early theme on a lot of her records and ended up comprising a lot of Speak Now was, I'm going to say the things that I couldn't say to you in person in song. And that's exactly what I'm getting from Today Was a Fairy Tale and Fearless. So whether this poor clueless man knows that Taylor is literally envisioning getting married to him and, being his everything forever and them being prince and princess of the world, is immaterial because she feels it. And that's what's important. Her perspective, her worldview. I love that a lot of the time, the man's experience, the man's opinion, his voice is rarely present in Taylor Swift songs. We don't care. We don't want to hear from him. Track 4 is Love Story because that's when it kind of starts to get a little bit real, okay? Hey Steven is about pining after someone in school, maybe taking little glances at them over the locker, thinking, oh my God, like I don't think that I'm the prettiest girl in the school, but I do have something that no one else has, and that's this capacious, insane imagination, and I can write you a song and blow your socks off in a way that will far surpass having huge naturals and a beautiful blonde blowout. But the real sad truth of the matter is the high school boys, they want the huge naturals. They don't want the custom-made song written about them that is kind of creepy, okay? No, I'm not saying that's right, but I'm saying that that really is the fact of the matter. So track 4, we have Love Story because it's starting to get real. It's starting to be, I want to date this guy at school, Dad, and Dad's saying, I hate him. He comes from a bad family. He has a tattoo. He got busted for drunk driving. I don't like him. I don't want you to date him. And Taylor is, again, being delusional and saying, well, I don't care because we're like Romeo and Juliet, actually. We live in America, but we are Romeo and Juliet in Venice, okay? That's who we are. Track 5. Now, this is an interesting one because a lot of the times I toy with the idea of not really hewing closely to the track 5 ideal. If you don't know, which you do if you're watching this, track 5 is the emotional centerpiece of any Taylor Swift album. It is I would say the breakthrough moment where you are really feeling Taylor's emotions. And a track 5 cannot just be a sad song or an angry song or an emotional song. It has to, I think, in a way, teach you something. And that's why I think that White Horse is not a great track 5. And I think that the track 5 for Fearless is right there. It's up top in the beginning of the track list, but not on mine. I've removed her. It's 15. 15 is the older sister you never had that you so desperately needed. You come away from 15 feeling like your feelings are valid, but also understanding that even if it doesn't feel like it right now, you will be okay in the future. And these huge, important, sad feelings that you have that feel like they're going to drown you or take over your life are temporal. And you know that because someone older and wiser that has been through all of these things before you so that you don't have to, or so that it's easier for you, is telling you so. So that's why I think 15 is a track 5. Track 6, I think, is Untouchable. Untouchable is kind of an ominous song, neither happy nor sad. It's kind of a dreamy song. It's like Superstar. I debated between Superstar and Untouchable here, but I think in the progression of the story I'm telling, which is how your first love goes, it starts magical, wonderful, delusional. It kind of gets a little bit wonky and rocky. We're back, we're so over, we're so back, that kind of vibe. So after Untouchable, I get into You Belong With Me because Untouchable and You Belong With Me actually are very coded and related to each other. They are about wanting something that you can't have and dreaming of it. And the thing with You Belong With Me is that it doesn't necessarily have a great happy ending. In the music video it does, but in the song itself, when you remove it from that connection, it doesn't necessarily end well. And that's kind of the vibe that I'm going with here. So Untouchable is I'm wondering if we can be together. You Belong With Me is I'm so close to telling you that we do. And after that, we get into White Horse because maybe you were together for a little bit and he kissed another girl at a party, or he said that he wanted to go on a date with you and he stood you up. He didn't come and pick you up. You were waiting on your porch. That is when you really get into a place of White Horse. That's what's up next. That is up next. It is White Horse. It is a moment where you, for the first time, realize that life actually is not a cabaret, as Bethany Frankel said about Luann, and it will not all be sunshine and rainbows for you. And there is an element of reality that you have to accept into your delusional worldview, even though the world would just be so much better if we could live in fairy tales all the time anyway. Track 9 is The Other Side of the Door. And this is the kind of romantic grief part that is bargaining, I think. It's like, well, if this one thing had been different, or if I had done this, or if you would just say this and I could just do that, if I could literally move us around like puppets puppets on a stage in my play of life, then everything would just go the way that I would want it to. And it would be so easy if you would just follow these invisible instructions I'm issuing to you in my head. But unfortunately, that's not how the world works, which is why after the other side of the door, we are followed with breathe, because she's standing on the other side of the door. She's hoping that he's going to break through and sweep her off her feet. But really, he's gone home. He got into his truck and he drove home, and she's sliding down the door and crying like she did in the White Horse music video. That's what's happening here. Then we get into the way I loved you, because we're done being mopey. We're done being sad. We've now moved on. We're trying to really kind of like see another person, restart that feeling again. But then you realize that the feeling that you get, that fearless feeling, that today was a fairy tale feeling, you can't just manufacture it. You can't just have the feeling because you want to, because someone is nice and there and perfect and waiting for you. It's a very kismet chemistry thing that cannot be replicated. And I think that's another part of your first love. You realize that you can't just decide to love someone. There is an element of like inactivity or passivity to it, that ineffable chemistry that you can't describe. Then we go to, okay, now I'm pissed. Now I'm angry. I'm mad. I missed you before when I was with this guy, but now I'm just mad that you're gone. And I wish bad things for you and the new person that you're with. And I kind of don't even really want you back anymore. So we have Tell Me Why. We have Tell Me Why at track 11. And this is a crazy run of songs. We go from Tell Me Why into Forever and Always. By the way, You Belong With Me and Forever and Always, they are not Taylor's version on this playlist, okay? Because we can't be listening to botched re-recordings of amazing songs. Forever and Always it's the scream. It's the primal scream. Tell Me Why is the chastising. Forever and Always is the scream. And then we end with Mr. Perfectly Fine. And Mr. Perfectly Fine is a really interesting closing track. I think we're starting with Fearless and ending with Mr. Perfectly Fine. All those lessons learned in between that, and you circle back around to being a little less hopeful, a little less wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, but you are gonna be all right someday. That is the thing about Taylor that makes her such an incredible narrator and such an interesting chronicler of love and heartbreak in the romantic condition, is that she is always, no matter how hard you knock her down, you blow the wind out of her, she will get back up on her good foot and enter into a new relationship with the same wide-eyed vulnerability. Now, it's not the same. It's jaded. She can resurrect that fearless version of her from time to time, but I think it's a really essential life cycle of a Taylor Swift broken heart that she starts with going in headfirst fearless. She doesn't do cautious. She doesn't do half in, half out. She is a jump in with both feet kind of person. And I think that ending with Mr. Perfectly Fine and going into my Speak Now track list, which is I've already created and you can find on Spotify, the first track on that is Foolish One. And I just take a moment and think about ending the fearless era, closing out that theme and that moment in her life with Mr. Perfectly Fine. I'm gonna be all right someday. And she's starting with Foolish One. Foolish One is the lesson that she learned from Fearless, but it's also a reassurance to herself that she's always going to be a foolish one. And that's just part of who she is. And we learn to love it and accept it. All right, that is all that I have for you today in this video. Don't forget to get tickets to the Sneers tour. Scan my QR code on the screen or use the code Swiftologist55 at checkout to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Thank you again so much to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. We'll leave the Swiftologist version of Fearless down below, along with all the other ranking and reshuffling videos that you can peruse at your leisure. Okay, goodbye, Swifties. I will see you in the next one.